The precious pearl of the Orient. Eastern Rome. The shining star of the world. This is how Samarkand has been called for 2,500 years. The rich city with developed culture, trade and crafts attracted many conquerors. Thus, after the conquest of Bactria, Alexander the Great went to Samarkand. From the beginning of the 8th century, Samarkand became an important center of Muslim culture, but, in the 13th century, the city was almost completely destroyed by the Mongol ruler Genghis Khan. In the 14th century, Samarkand became the capital of Amir Timur's empire, which stretched from the Syr Darya to the Ganges and the Bosphorus. Amir Timur, Tamerlane, wanted his capital to outshine. With its splendor, all the cities of the world, Amir Timur brought the best architects and craftsmen from all over the world. Uzbekistan has been the center of Samarkand since the times of Amir Timur. Once upon a time, in this square, to the sound of huge brass trumpets, heralds announced the decrees of the rulers to the citizens. Here the victors showed the citizens of Samarkand trophies and rich booty. Now 3 madrasas are located on Uzbekistan Square. One of them was erected in the 15th century on the instructions of Amir Timur's grandson Ulugh Madrasa. It was a true temple of science. Ulugh was a great scientist, encyclopedist and, from the age of 15, ruler of Samarkand. A contemporary wrote that Ulugh was a great scientist. In geometry he was similar to Euclid, and in astronomy to Ptolemy. A contemporary wrote that Ulugh was a powerful, just and magnanimous Padishah as well. The level of knowledge of scientists in his time was at a great height, and the most worthy of them occupied an important position in society. In Samarkand, part of the observatory, which was built by Ulugh in the 15th century, has been preserved. The main instrument of the observatory was a giant double meridian arc with a radius of over 40 meters. The lower part of the arc was in the rock, a trench 11 meters deep. The observatory was located on a hill and amazed with its gigantic size anyone who saw it. In an era when there were no optical means of observation, this instrument provided unique accuracy in determining the coordinates of the sun and planets. The most important result of this research was the famous astronomical tables containing the coordinates of over 1,000 stars. The tables were widely used by scientists all over the world, and in the 17th century were published in Oxford. It is written in textbooks that the difference between the duration of the year determined by ancient calculations of Ulugh and calculations of modern ultra-precise devices is only 1 minute. Bibi Khana Mosque was built in the 14th century. It was the largest in Central Asia. It was said like this: its dome would be the only one if the sky did not repeat it. Its arch would have been the only one if the Milky Way had not paired with it. In the diary of the Spanish ambassador at the court of Amir Timur it is recorded that the mosque was built by order of Amir Timur himself in honor of the mother of his eldest wife. the inhabitants of Samarkand still believe that if one goes around the stand of the famous Quran Osman 3 times or crawls under it, one will always be healthy and successful. Amir Mausoleum, the family tomb of the Timurids, is the most famous monument of Samarkand. On the territory of the courtyard there is a famous throne stone Koktash moved from the citadel, on which the representatives of the great dynasty were crowned. At first Amir was intended for the burial of Timur's favorite grandson Muhammad Sultan, but then Amir Timur himself, his sons and great-grandsons were buried there. Another grandson of Amir Timur, Ulugh, is also buried there. And the tombstone of Amir Timur himself, according to his will, is located at the feet of his spiritual mentor, Sheikh Syr Darya. So great is the respect for the teacher in the East. Imam al-Bukhari was born in 810 in Bukhara, but died and was buried near Samarkand in 870. Imam al-Bukhari undertook a Herculean labor of selecting hadiths in order to weed out the unreliable ones and preserve for posterity the true words of the Prophet. In the process he checked about 600,000 hadiths. And as a result of this titanic labor, Imam al-Bukhari confirmed the authenticity of only a little more than 6,000 of them. At the same time, Imam al-Bukhari developed and applied the principles of hadith classification depending on the source. According to his contemporaries, Imam al-Bukhari had a unique memory. When he read a book only once, he memorized its contents by heart. The result of 16 years of hard work was a collection of the most reliable hadiths. In the 16th century, a small mausoleum was erected over the modest grave of the Imam. A mosque was built nearby and china trees were planted. A few years ago, in connection with the celebration of the anniversary of the birth of Imam al-Bukhari, a memorial complex was erected on the site of the ancient mausoleum. Visiting this holy place is equated by Muslims to a small hajj. On the outskirts of Samarkand, on the slope of Afrosiab Hill, the architectural ensemble of Shahi Zinda was formed. This unique ensemble was built over hundreds of years. 11 mausoleums one after another. All the mausoleums are located on both sides of a narrow ancient street. There is a marvelous staircase in Shahi Zinda. It is said that you should count the steps when you go up and then when you come down. And if their number coincides, it means that after visiting Shahi Zinda, you got rid of all your sins. Not only great generals, but also great figures of culture and science have left their mark in the history of Samarkand. This is the great healer Avicenna, the great poets Navoy and Rumi, the founder of the dynasty of great Moguls, Babur and many others. Throughout the centuries, the ancient city was constantly involved in a whirlpool of turbulent and sometimes tragic events. Periods of brilliant prosperity were followed by decline, but the city invariably revived and became even more attractive.